you're sober, it's not over. Getting lower, feeling colder. Drop me off West 7th Street. Can't feel my hands on my feet, yeah. I don't know if I can be there for you. But you are knocking on my window at 3 a.m. asking me to let you in, interrupting my living, asking me to go hit it, saying I'm not going in. You're mad at me for missing it. I'm just here, I'm listening. Cause breaking in you toxic. Your club has started boxing. Your brains go out, you lost it. Trying to get you to stop it. Stop the madness, the crazy laughing. Where's the ghosty face feeling happy? Why you mad? I'm just asking. Try to find out why you're the captain. Call me when you're sober, it's not over. Getting lower, feeling colder. Drop me off West 7th Street. Can't feel my hands on my feet, yeah. I don't know if I can be there for you. But you are.
The number you have called has been disconnected.
Bars are closed, you tore your clothes, no broken bones, car got towed, we had it home. Pick up your phone, you're not alone. We what we own, you drunk and stone, don't know where to go. Testify to WWI, you crying about the charges, saying that they lied. Embarrassed about the mug shop, but didn't try to hide the way you are deep down inside. Cause business high coming out, fights coming out, cries coming out, lies coming out, lies coming out, bites coming out, praise coming out, wise coming out, yeah, the wise coming out. Call me when you're sober, it's not over. Getting lower, feeling colder. Run me off West 7th Street. Can't feel my hands on my feet. I don't know if I can be there for you. But you are.
It is March 2021, and this month's theme is Ripple. It was chosen by our Tel Aviv chapter and beautifully illustrated, as you can see. The illustrator is Masha Manopov. So 223 chapters are interpreting it around the world. Without further ado, it is my absolute honor to introduce our local hometown creative, a very talented fashion artist, the Sunflowerman, who is about to tell us his story about his ripples and identity. Kicking it over to you, Matthew.
I am Sunflowerman. I'm a fashion artist. Basically, that means I sit down and paint suits and watches and shoes all day. Before I really dig into that, I also want to make sure I thank everybody who's volunteering today. This is a fantastic team of people who are putting their skills at work to bring you this talk, and I'm humbled that I get the opportunity to be here with them. Thank you, everybody, for making this possible. My name is Sunflowerman, and so every superhero has an origin story. We'll kick off with that. I was 10 years old, and I was going to this summer camp in Michigan every year. I loved this camp from 8 years old to 18, and one year we had to pick an item out of a bag. So I reach in, a bunch of items in this bag, and we had to make a skit out of it. So I reach in, 10 years old, I pull out a shower curtain, I look at it, it's covered in sunflowers. Of course, I love Sunflowerman, or I love Sunflowerman now. I loved Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and it's covered in sunflowers. So I take the shower curtain, drape it over my shoulders, tie it off, and I became Sunflowerman that day. I was born with a pencil in my hand. In that way, I was born an artist rather than becoming an artist. But there was also a point where I had to choose to become an artist. There's a quote by Socrates that really just kills me every time. It's, "The unexamined life is not worth living." So let's examine. My name is Matthew Miller, M, right there in the middle of the alphabet. Everywhere I go, basically in the United States, there is another Matthew Miller. I played against another Matthew Miller in high school, and I was in a very small school. There was another Matthew Miller on another team. It's so common, in fact, so ubiquitous that now every time I re-enter the United States from a foreign country, I get detained at the airport. Why is this? Well, basically our passports are our name and our year, the year we were born. That's it. So some other Matthew Miller with my exact birthday did some crime in Phoenix, Arizona. They won't tell me more than that. And so now I get detained every time I re-enter the United States. That's how common my name is. I'm 5'10", which is the literal average height of Caucasian males in America. I grew up in the Midwest. Basically, the way I see myself is average, boring, pretty basic. But there's a way I imagine other people see me. They see the artist, the person who gets to create and kind of have fun and make things up all day. They see the person that gets to travel, who lived abroad for years on end. They see the person who interacts with influencers and entrepreneurs. Ostensibly, I'm an interesting person. A year ago, as Vivian was saying before, I was going to give a talk with Creative Mornings here in Fort Worth on identity. And then COVID hit and it spread and everything was shut down. I'm sure you were affected. And so we postponed for a year, and here we are again a year later, and I'm still thinking about identity. And I'm probably going to try way too hard, but stick with me because I want to make sure I adapt today's theme, ripples. And we're attaching it to my previous talk, ripples and identity. All right, trying too hard, keep that in mind. There's a calm, serene pond. A deer is off in the distance lapping the water so calmly, no disturbance is felt. But out of nowhere, a rock flies through the air, kerplunk, into the water, pushing the water down, forcing water up on all sides. And this is where we stop. This moment of contrast is where I want to stop. In the beginning, art chose me. And then there was a moment I had to choose art. Ripples are the moment a choice must be made. The unexamined life is not worth living. I'm still not sure I understand what it means. Still guts me. But if I do understand, this is what it means to me. If you understand who you are, you can move through life with purpose. I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I love Michigan still, my favorite state in the country. And I was born with a pencil in my hand. That meant art chose me. Then I had to choose. I had to make a choice for myself. So at the age of 18, a switch was flipped, a button was pushed, and I became conscious for the first time. As a child, I fulfilled every role I was expected to fulfill. I did everything I was expected to do. Kindergarten, elementary, middle school, high school. I did all of the things. I just moved through life as I was pushed through life. And then at 18, I had to make decisions for myself. What college was I going to go to? What degree was I going to major in? And so I chose linguistics. Wait, linguistics, the study of languages? Very boring, I promise you, but also very beautiful. I love this symbiosis that we have as people with language, this ethereal creature that we evolved with and has evolved with us. We don't exist without communication, and it doesn't exist without us communicating. I love the beauty in that. But at 18, I had to look back on my life and see that in kindergarten, I was drawing. In elementary, in middle school, in high school, I was drawing all the time, in the margins of my homework, during band, at church, on my free time, watching movies. That's what I did. And so when it came time to make a choice, it became clear to me. When I became conscious and that flip switched, I realized art was something I wanted as well. So I chose art for the first time. I applied to Kendall College of Art and Design in my hometown in Grand Rapids, Michigan, got in. 2 years later, for various reasons, I dropped out of art school, yay me. And I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, the ATL. I had no job, no contacts, no place to live, $600 to my name, a 96 Dodge Grand Caravan, which I cherished. And within 24 hours of arriving, my sketchbooks were stolen, my computer was stolen. I realized I was basically homeless and nearly destitute. I make that sound extra dramatic just for the moment. But in that time, those 24 hours, I moved to a new place. I needed to discover who I was, and I was faced with a reality of living on the streets. There was a real reality for me. It didn't end up happening. But I made a pact with myself and with God, and I said, no matter what, even if I'm on the streets, I'm going to be drawing. With my hands in the dirt, this is going to be who I am. And when I look back at that person, and you should probably think this too, those priorities were not right. You need food and you need shelter. So just remember that. Then you can draw way more if you have a home and you're eating right. But when I think about that moment, I realize it's another time when I chose art. When I examined my life, and in the worst moment of my life, I was thinking about drawing. That was my main concern. Since then, I dropped out of art school a second time. I met my wife. We got married. She's from Fort Worth. I started a career in illustration. I traveled the world. And then I moved here to Fort Worth, Texas. Cowtown, Funky Town, Panther City, lots of beautiful names. Here I've been able to meet some amazing people who I think I'm very simpatico with, people I think are, whether they intentionally have done it or not, are people who examined their own lives. I want to name one of them right now, Frank, who's standing beside me over here. We're in his showroom. He was grateful and graceful enough to share this space with us today. So I want to thank him for that, but I also just want to highlight this space and this time and this person, Franklin Moss of Franklin and Anthony. I'm actually wearing his suit right now. Fantastic clothier here in Fort Worth, Texas. Somebody who I believe has examined his life as well and found his purpose. Nightstand lamps as well. You heard them at the beginning. You will hear them again before the end. A group of young gentlemen who, for various reasons, have come from around the country together and know their purpose. It's creating, it's music. I'm not saying creativity is the only purpose in life. I'm just saying in Fort Worth, these are people I have found who I see as similar to me in this way. When I examine my life and see the cascading ripples through time, I see when I was born with that pencil in my hand and art chose me. I see when I turned 18 and became conscious and realized I was going to choose art for myself. When I turned 20 and I was faced with nothingness, and still art was my choice. And basically every day since then. The main thing on my mind is, what am I drawing today? What am I painting today? I can be the boring, average, basic person that I see. I can be the interesting, artistic person that I believe other people see. But it doesn't matter. Those don't really matter to me. What I know, who I am in reality, is an artist. I'm going to leave you with that quote from Socrates. Take from it what you will. The unexamined life is not worth living. Now we're going to have some Q&A, which I'm very excited for. That's my favorite part, actually, of any talk, is the Q&A. So we're going to have that. But before we do, we have another song from Nightstand Lamps. That's right, I told you. We're going to be hearing more from them. These fantastic young men who are in the band Nightstand Lamps are going to be debuting their song, Panther City.
On us, we the kids, yeah, we said what we said and we did what we did. Whoa. On us, we the heathens, we young and we teething, yeah, young bloods, we screaming, whoa. You know we ain't leaving, we out here, we screaming, we stay out here screaming. Cause in New York, they ain't busy, right? If we in Texas, that don't affect us, that ain't what's happening. We stay two-stepping, we going crazy in Panther City. In New York, they ain't busy, right? If we in Texas, that don't affect us, that ain't what's happening. We stay two-stepping, we going crazy in Panther City. On the good times, we just catching our stride. Out here living our lives, we going up, down, down, down. More than just a hometown. Crowds out, sounds out, eyes are loud on us. We the wild to the west, and the dirty to the south. We ain't get no rest, cause we out here living loud. They looking really tired, cause they always chasing crowd. You know it ain't no Dallas, it's that Panther City vibe. In New York, they ain't really rock, but we in Texas, that don't affect us. That ain't 1-7, we stay two-stepping, we going crazy in Panther City. Cause in New York, they ain't really rock, but we in Texas, that don't affect us. That ain't 1-7, we stay two-stepping, we going crazy in Panther City.
Wow. Wasn't that awesome? Thank you, Matthew. And I just want to acknowledge this. It's really weird to talk straight to camera when, Matthew, you're right here.
Yes, and I'm talking over here, yeah.
It's really awesome. So we're doing this for you. I have the chat in my hand, so I'm going to be glancing at this while Matthew and I do our Q&A now. So Matthew, one of the things that really stirred my heart when you were talking is this idea of choice. As I hear from people who say, you know, that they want to see something or that there's they want clarity before they do anything. And when you said choice, it reminded me that you're taking action, that you're making that path happen. Can you tell us more about that and how you got to that mindset?
Yeah, I like the idea of choice. Another moment in my life where there was another choice, we can just use another example at the top here, is I got into fashion kind of accidentally. But once I realized there was nobody else doing men's fashion illustration, I decided, I made another choice. I would be that person. I had no idea who I was as an artist. I knew I needed to be an artist. And I made a conscious choice to choose fashion illustration at a time when nobody was doing men's fashion illustration on the marketing and advertising side. So there's something about choices that I don't know why necessarily I've gravitated toward that. So I'm very lucky in a sense I started making choices, like conscious choices, before I realized it was really important. But I saw, you see people around you growing up, family members, friends, and where they end up, people who are a bit older than you, and maybe where younger people are headed, and then you look at yourself and think, maybe I don't want to end up in X position or Y position. And so I made some choices deliberately to not be in certain situations. I didn't know where they would lead, but to head in some direction.
Perfect. So Lori from Brooklyn wants to know why Atlanta and then why Texas?
Yeah, we have clear answers for those. Growing up in Michigan, love it. I love Michigan. The school there was fine. I did great in high school, but that was free. And then I started paying for college, and it felt like high school, which seemed like a waste. So I decided I would level up to a better school. So I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. And it was a much better school, better reputation, better program, better facilities, all around better, bigger city. I still like Grand Rapids more than Atlanta, but I still love Atlanta. So I wanted to level up because if I'm paying for it, I want the experience that I'm paying for. It turned out that wasn't for me either. I was running away from, not running away, but I didn't know what it was that I needed. And after going to another school, I discovered that it wasn't school that I needed. But that's where I met my wife. And she's from Fort Worth, Texas. So that's pretty succinct there. Pretty obvious.
When the wife is happy, everyone's happy.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Speaking from someone who's been married almost 30 years. So Jennifer Henderson from Fort Worth and our founding partner at JO would like to know what your medium of choice is in your artworks.
Yeah, for a couple of reasons, I focus on watercolors. And I'm going to say that if you've seen the portrait of Franklin that's behind Vivian, I don't know if you can see that now. That's acrylic. That's acrylic painting. I love painting with acrylics. I stay away from oils because the health hazards that are associated with it. And honestly, there are just too many things to mix, and it's annoying. Acrylics are way simpler, and I can just freely create. But I stuck with watercolors because in high school, I had an art teacher who saw my passion and wanted to invest in that. So she said, here's some watercolors, here's some paper, experiments. She gave me the good stuff, not the classroom stuff. She gave me the good stuff. And I took it home over the summer and blew my mind. I fell in love with watercolors. I've had an up and down relationship with it over the years, but I fell in love with watercolors. And then now that I'm older, I see very few professional artists focus on watercolor, especially in the fields I'm in, fashion and watches. Nobody does watercolor. It's a difficult medium to learn well. Not saying that I'm great at it, but I'm better than the average person at least. So I stand out significantly for doing something nobody else can be doing in my industry.
I actually just love that. Like, I feel like you are uniquely you, and that is what all of us are moving closer and closer towards, is that truth of us outside of everything everyone else wants us to do. So bravo to you, Matthew. Elisa loves acrylics too. She's tuning in from Seattle.
Amazing.
I love the questions coming in the chat. Thank you so much. So Lauren DeRusso, one of our design partners from Duo Designs, would like to know, how do you, well, that's not what she wrote. Let me read what she wrote. Do you remember what subject matter you were drawing during those pivotal moments in your life when you were 18 and 20? And what are you creating in your free time now?
Yeah, I was very emo in high school. I'll say that proudly. Definitely emo. So I was drawing, and I love Lord of the Rings. Created these whole universes based around this like principle of Lord of the Rings. And so I was drawing like battlefields and people dying. But actually that reminds me of in elementary, I got friends. The way I got attention was I drew dinosaurs on these huge volcanoes, and we would tape sheets of paper together, and I would have these volcanoes like spewing lava and dinosaurs like dying in the lava and dinosaurs eating each other. Loved dinosaurs. I still do. Dragons are amazing. But I was in these pivotal moments, the subject matter was very much this like medieval warfare sort of thing, kind of emo Lord of the Rings. And then when I was 20, that's when I was in Atlanta, I was experimenting with watercolor all over again. I had stopped painting with it because I was very angry at it. And then I started painting watercolors again, and I fell in love with that again.
Beautiful. So Patrick Terry, who's tuning in from Fort Worth, I wanted to know exactly where, like you can put that in the chat and I'll have to shout you out, would like to know what's something you haven't done yet that you still want to accomplish in your career? And are there any brands that you want to work with? Yeah.
So typically, as an illustrator, you're working with commercial clients. So that feels like an appropriate question. Which brands would I like to work with? There's a company that I've conversed with over time, Brunello Cucinelli. They're in Solomeo, Italy. I've been able to visit Solomeo, beautiful hamlet in the middle of Italy. And what Brunello Cucinelli has done there is wonderful. I have my own qualms about capitalism, just telling you straight up, but his view of conscious capitalism is a step, I believe, in the right direction. It's inaccessible for people like me, so there needs to be another evolution of that idea, but I love Brunello Cucinelli and their ethos and what they're doing. So I'd love to work with them. That's the next step for me.
I love that. And before we segue to the next question from our community, one of the things that you do is you bring in everyone around you, and we all lift each other up. So yes, talking and sharing about who you want to work with is sort of laying the groundwork for your future. So good for you for having it, top of mind. And anyone out there has connections, I'll shoot them over to Matthew. So, oh, and thank you, Lori, for dropping that chat, the link in the chat for everyone to check them out.
Oh, yeah.
So Mika is asking, how would you describe the evolution of your personal style and relationship? These are three-part questions. It's like an interview.
Three-part, okay. All right.
How would you describe the evolution of your personal style and relationship with fashion throughout your life?
Oh, this is great. There's a story, a simple story here. I found fashion during this age of Tumblr and Blogspot and what we call in the industry hashtag menswear, when that term really blew up. This is started in 06, 07. I didn't really catch on until probably 2010. And it's this whole revolution in the menswear industry. For so long, the businesses in men's fashion would take a photo of the product, put it in a catalog. That was a man's experience with a brand or with product. And then hashtag menswear hits. We have this blogger revolution, this revolution of cameras everywhere, and style becomes accessible to men on a very common level. The average man can be interested, and he realizes it for the first time. And so we get this revolution in the industry of creativity, of people experimenting, finding old styles. So I love that about menswear. For me, I had zero relation to fashion until that hashtag menswear era. I basically wore just basketball shorts and an oversized t-shirt, whatever my mother had purchased for me over the years. Just, probably was dirty and had holes, and I didn't care. Honestly, I might still not care, but I love the beauty now that I find in fashion. This is just one expression. So for my evolution, it was from this raggedy child to experimenting with suits and ties until you get this sort of eclectic contemporary American meets Italian flair.
Nice. And if you've noticed my fashion, Brian will drop a link in the chat on how you can get one of these very fashionable Rise and Shine Fort Worth Creative Mornings t-shirts for you.
All right.
So Lori from Brooklyn wants to know if you have a daily routine that helps fuel your creative practice, and who are your style icons?
Another dual-part question. This is like being on air on television, talking to reporters. Okay, so style icons and, wait, give me the first part again, real quick, Vivian.
Oh, sorry. I was all excited, like making
Yeah.
Who are your style icons? And do you have a daily routine that helps fuel your creative practice?
I may focus on that part more. I like that question more. Okay. Style icons are just friends that I've met over the years. I don't really have historical icons that I look to. I know they affect the industry, so I know they affect me, but I look to my friends, contemporaries. When it comes to a daily routine, for so long I lived abroad, basically as a nomad, and the only thing that was a routine was my constant obsession, my need to draw, which just forced me, whether I'm at a cafe in Croatia or in Italy, or I'm walking on the shores in Portugal, I have a sketchbook with me. Nowadays, I'm here in Fort Worth, and over the pandemic especially, I was developing more of a routine: wake up, draw, paint, share on social media, go to sleep, do the same thing over again. But my daily routine is essentially drink coffee and draw.
Nice. And your style icons?
My contemporaries and friends in the industry. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. And I'll look for more chat questions from you, but I actually have a question for you, Matthew. And before I move on, someone in the chat, I think it was Lauren, said that she loves the style of this Q&A, as it feels intimate, like we're actually speaking to you and you're in the room. And I love that, because that's the biggest compliment. We cannot wait till we are not social distancing and it's safe for us to gather again, because we just can't wait. It's exciting. So my question for you is, it was days before you were taking our stage at the Modern last year, when the world shut down and we went into our whole year of the global pandemic. You are now speaking on ripples in your identity, sort of marrying that theme with this theme. So my question for you is, over the last year, how has your identity rippled? And what impacts has the context of our world really, how has it impacted you?
Yeah, so much has happened in the last year, and I've experienced almost all of it from my apartment. I have, and that's such a big question, and I'm going to try and tackle it succinctly because there's so much there. I had to winnow away all of the things I was doing on the professional side. I had to winnow away all of the things that were distractions and discover what was really the direction I wanted to move in, which right when the pandemic hit, I had so many live events scheduled. That was my year, was doing live events, painting live, maybe installing something and performing something live. But at least through August, I had things scheduled and it all disappeared. Everything went away. I was so excited for the year. I was going to be traveling to Basel, Switzerland to do an exhibit at Basel World, which was the largest watch fair in the world. It since has collapsed in on itself and no longer exists, so that won't ever happen. And then I was going to go to Italy and possibly work with Brunello Cucinelli. We were on the verge, and that dissipated. So many of the things I was excited for in 2020 just didn't happen. And so I woke up and I drew. I ended up going live on Instagram with a lot of my friends, and I would draw them and talk to them about their experience in the moment. I was experimenting with different styles and things that I loved in the past. And I spent all day drawing and painting, really rediscovering who I was as an artist, because I realized this is a softer examination, but I was moving and swaying with an industry rather than finding my path in it. I don't really care for doing live event painting. That, in a lot of ways, is not so much an artistic endeavor as it is a carnival sideshow. And obviously, I'm saying something a little outrageous there. I can speak on that more at some point in the future. We don't need to get into that because there's obviously nuance to everything. But that's just mostly what it felt like. So I wanted to move away from the live work, even though that was my entire year. That's how I was going to survive that year. And so I decided, who am I going to be? How am I going to move forward? And I just reinvested in myself and in painting and drawing. So that was amazing during the pandemic. And now I'm on a trajectory that I never could have seen coming, and that is the best place for me in probably the entire almost decade that I've been doing fashion. Personally, we were faced with, partly because the pandemic closed us all in and forced us all to just look at social media, I was faced with, who am I with a platform in a society filled with injustices? And I had to decide what I wanted to do in that space. I was definitely using it to my own gain. I've been good at that over the years. And so I was exploring and trying to figure out, how do I use a platform, however big it is, to speak out about things that were so obvious, not things that I saw, things that were hitting all of us in the face. So I was doing that, and I've catered a lot of my artwork that way. And I'm still exploring that idea. Right now, we're in another moment where we have Stop Asian Hate happening across the country. We're facing another, not a new problem, we're just being faced with another problem that we have. And hopefully, we're reckoning. We are not good at reckoning. And when you just look at our history, but hopefully we're reckoning with ourselves and dealing with our problems. We'll see where that's going. And so I've had to discover, with a platform, I need to say something. I need to be careful when I can, who I am in society, but I need to speak out in some way.
Thank you for sharing that from your heart. And there are points in that I know I will go back and rewind and listen to. It's really hitting me, sorry. So, let's see, we're gonna have 2 more questions from you guys and gals, from you folks with an X. Where are your favorite hangouts in Fort Worth?
Oh, right here, number 1. Here with Frank, hanging out in the showroom, looking at his latest designs, putting up artwork, talking about business and life. This is one of my favorite places now. I love black coffee, and there is a relation to Franklin and Anthony. Frank's wife, Mia, runs Black Coffee. Fantastic coffee shop here on this is the east side, right? Yeah. Still learning my geography of the area. And then I love walking along the river, going down the TCC North Campus, down to the river and walking along the Trinity. I've been doing that just about every day for the last year, even in the storm. There was a big winter storm, sorry. There was an international audience. You all heard about the Texas winter storms. Even then, we were still walking along the Trinity.
Well, you were. I wasn't.
My wife and I, yes, that's right. Not everybody was.
I
yeah.
like staying warm. But bravo to you for doing that. Are there any final thoughts or inspiration that you have for us all listening on how we can... I just loved when you said as part of your talk that I felt compelled to draw. And I feel like if there were layers of me that weren't here, then I could hear and feel whatever is compelling me even more closer, kind of like you did. So what kind of insight would you share with us on how we can get there?
Yeah, I don't know for sure. First of all, I'll say I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky that before I was conscious of the thing that I loved, it was already a part of my life. I will say, I don't like to speak for my wife because I know she has a way of speaking and I don't want to step on her toes. But my wife also is an artist. She still is. She's a genius. I'm going to say this. She's a genius. Color, composition, concept, a genius. But she wasn't really that interested in the career of art. And she discovered that for herself. And she was giving advice to somebody else about what they should be doing, or an option for them. And she realized in that moment, that was advice for herself. And I heard somebody say, I don't know who this was, I'm going to butcher it. When you're giving advice to other people, usually that's the advice you're giving to yourself. And she took that moment. I'm so proud of what she did, and I think this is a template for anybody out there. When you're giving advice, and when you think you can see what other people should be doing in their lives, that might be what you need to be doing in your own life. So take a moment, think about those things. My wife decided to do a 180. So proud of what she did because she wasn't happy doing what she was doing. She thought she was supposed to do that. And she discovered this other path. So I'm proud of her. I think that's a template. Figure out the advice you would give to somebody else and then consider that for your own life.
That's wonderful. There's a lot of head nodding, including my own. Jazz hands happening for that. Thank you so much. And we have one more song for you. We know you love the Nightstand Lamps, and this is their third debut, Iconic.
We know that we're iconic. The kings and queen, they rebel because they always on it. Just like the Beatles, who said they really want it. Yeah, you know that they iconic, and we know that we're iconic. They said that we the worst. We know that we're iconic. The kings and queen, they rebel because they always on it. Just like the Beatles, who said they really want it. Yeah, you know that they iconic, and we know that we're iconic. Yeah. We know that we crazy like Kanye and Jay-Z. 2011 Paris, we live that on the daily. No clout hustle daily, almost rock with the baby. Rock stars ain't no maybes, we get it, all you hating. So look, listen, you don't know what you're missing. That is until you missed it. Yeah, someone else is spitting. Yeah, we know hate the image of all the rings you're kissing. When that backhand is hitting, you know that you should listen. They said that we the worst. We know that we're iconic. The kings and queen, they rebel because they always on it. Just like the Beatles, who said they really want it. Yeah, you know that they iconic, and we know that we're said they really want it, yeah. You know that they iconic, and we know that we're iconic, yeah, yeah, yeah. We know that we're iconic, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, trust us how we got it, yeah, yeah, yeah. We know it sounds ironic, but we know that we're iconic, and you know that we're iconic. Let bygones be bygones, you talking to an icon. I know you got your eyes on the way I move, but I'm gone, cause eyes on the prize, I do or die. That's the difference between you and I. You switching sides, that's ill advised. Exactly why you a bitch in my eyes. Cause murder's all she wrote with a little pink revolver. Got a number in my phone, I really should've called her. You can't really be blaming me cause I tried to holler. Say la vie, I'm out here partying just like a rock star. Said that we the worst, we know that we're iconic. The kings, the queen, they rebel because they always on it. Just like the Beatles, who said they really want it, yeah. You know that they iconic, and we know that we're iconic.